I sit cross-legged on my hardwood floor. Photographs scatter like fallen leaves around me. Vermont. Autumn. A bride in cream against gold. It's the kind of light I chase for years. Then my phone rings. Mom, I'm Courtney Palmer. My mother's voice slices through the calm. Don't come to your sister's wedding. The mug slips, shattering, coffee floods my prints. Ink bleeds. Maple leaves blur into brown. You'll ruin Lily's day. I stare at her name on the screen. The same letters that once meant home. Today they mean exile. I whisper. I've photographed 180 weddings. But not my sister's. Not the one deciding I don't belong. Before the coffee dries, a truth settles. They've taken enough from me already. I won't beg for invitations again. That day, I stopped waiting for permission and started framing my own story. I didn't learn absence from empty chairs. I learned it from edited frames, from being present, then cropped later, from smiles that skipped me in every frame. On Lily's birthdays, cameras never malfunctioned. They just forgot where I stood. Mom angled me behind balloons and elbows. Dad said, "Be gracious, be smaller." At 12, I won a photo trophy. We placed it behind Lily's ribbon. "Don't make your sister feel bad," Mom said. Thanksgiving rehearsed the same blocking. Adults' table bright with carved stories. Kids' table sticky with cranberry apologies. Lily on Dad's lap, already centered. When I asked about art school, silence answered. Then came the practiced patient sigh. "Be practical, Courtney. Be selfless for once." Selfless meant invisible, precisely measured. I learned the household rituals of fairness. Gifts with conditions, hugs with explanations. Compliments diluted until they vanished. Love that required shrinkage to fit. I stopped asking for the front row. I memorized the room's edge. I became fluent in polite disappearances. The camera saved what people misread. Through glass, I could tell truth. A father's hand shaking during vows. Unscripted devotion that needed no witnesses. Proof that tenderness doesn't need permission. Ethan noticed first, without ceremony. He celebrated a magazine cover at midnight. He taped it to the refrigerator himself. No one asked him to remove it. "Your work makes strangers feel seen," he said. "The problem isn't your brightness, Court. It's their sunglasses." The joke landed like a diagnosis. I kept photo boxes under the bed. Images of love outside family politics. My private museum of unedited truth. When Mom said, "Be selfless," I nodded. Then I tilted my lens a degree. Each degree became distance without noise. What I couldn't say at dinner, my shutter kept saying for me. Only once did I misplace the frame, when I left myself outside it. Amanda called while emails blurred. "Court, you need to see this. Miami. $800,000. White tulips from Holland." My stomach tightened around the number. "Bradley told Lily you're not invited. He says you steal attention. He's never even met you." I opened Instagram anyway. Mom's caption hit harder than photos. "Sometimes kindness is stepping back." I pulled family albums from closets. Dust rose like old excuses. In portraits, I drifted peripheral. Behind elbows, half-shadowed off-center. Histories staged like theater blocking. My smile negotiated someone else's feelings. Ethan found me mapping patterns. He sat on the floor quietly. "Read what your clients wrote." He read reviews like love letters. She made our day feel honest. She saw who we were. Evidence I kept forgetting to trust. "These people see you," he said. "Your family can't or won't." The room steadied around his voice. I exhaled like surf leaving rocks. I wanted something unarguable and mine. Not vengeance, not spectacle, direction. Near midnight, the phone lit. Lily from her bachelorette weekend. "Are you awake?" she whispered. "I miss you, Court." "Then why am I uninvited?" "Mom's afraid you'll charm everyone. Sometimes it's hard being the favorite." "You're worried about expectations?" "I've built my life around them." She went quiet, then retreated. Seattle cooled outside our windows. Ethan pulled me to his shoulder. "What if we leave town?" Not to run, to breathe. We drove until city thinned. Cabin air smelled like pine and rain. I spread travel brochures across the table. Not escape orientation. He opened his laptop softly. A stone villa above blue water. Amalfi Cliffs. Jasmine. Olive branches. Golden hour photographer's chase. "Giovanni rents this for small weddings. We could choose us," he said. Not as protest, as practice. The old reflex rose, permission. I swallowed it and stood taller. 4 years together, postponing joy. Waiting for a family green light. A light that never turned green. My hands steadied on the keyboard. September dates glowed like a dare. I studied what makes moments real. Not budgets, centerpieces, guests. Hands reaching when unobserved. Eyes changing shape in vows. Air shifting when truth arrives. What if we document ours like that? No staging, no performance, just truth. We listed who truly shows up. 25 names. No seats for guilt. The guest list felt like oxygen. Seattle lights flickered outside. I stood on the balcony, breathing. Guilt paced, then left the room. I pictured Jasmine in sea wind. My spine without apology. The choice wasn't between weddings. It was between versions of me. We drafted a plan without theater. Vows in golden light. Documentary style. Maria and Alex behind lenses. Giovanni guarding privacy like ceremony. I emailed confirmations before sleep. Space opened where pleading lived. I didn't need their green light anymore. I could light my own frame. I had spent years shrinking to fit. Now I was learning to expand. Dawn thinned across Seattle like gauze. I called my mother from the balcony. Ethan and I are marrying, Amalfi, September 15th. Silence, then the blade under fabric. You will cancel, Margaret said evenly, or you're no longer family. I'm sharing news, not asking permission. You're stealing Lily's moment, she snapped. My father arrived with practiced sorrow. Be selfless for once, Court. Your absence will be a gift. They switched to performance mode. Lily hospitalized with stress, they claimed. It clashed with her Bahamas stories. Grandmother heartbroken about flights. Cousins disappointed. Sponsors offended. I texted Ethan one sentence. They've escalated to exile. He answered without decoration. We keep our date. By noon, calls multiplied. Aunties. Neighbors. Concern-shaped knives wrapped as advice. Is Italy necessary, dear? Why provoke your sister now? Real love doesn't need scenery. I archived each one like evidence. Giovanni rang with warm thunder. A woman asked about security, he said. I told her nothing. Your privacy is sacred. We'll add guards for the terrace. That night, Lily's name glowed again. Did Mom call you? She asked. She's upset. So are weather systems, I said. Is Italy beautiful? She whispered. Yes, I answered, softer than anger. 25 people who truly show up. She exhaled something like longing. 230 here. Mostly Bradley's people. Her rehearsed line returned, altered. Being the favorite is heavy. Truth appeared, then retreated. We locked our plans like shutters. Maria and Alex confirmed flights. Marcus mapped the documentary schedule. Ethan secured a discreet contact. I finalized consulate paperwork. At dawn, we reached SeaTac. Gate A, Naples via Paris. My hands shook, then steadied. I thought of Vermont maples. Coffee across ruined prints. Humiliation rewritten. This time, air felt mine. On the plane, Ethan traced timelines. Vows timed to golden hour. No aisle choreography, no staged tears. Whatever they do, he murmured. We're not getting smaller. Over the Atlantic, I drafted vows. Not perfection, not performance. Height. Light that doesn't dim politely. A frame large enough for breath. Jasmine crossing the terrace. The click that blessed strangers. Finally blessing me. Landing, messages swarmed again. Excommunication packaged as concern. Accusations packaged as love. I answered none. Giovanni waited at arrivals, smiling. The light will be extraordinary, he said. We took the cliff road slowly. Last chance to turn back, Ethan teased. I looked at the horizon, grinning. There was never a chance. Evening rehearsed tomorrow's choreography. Maria checked angles and wind. Alex walked the terrace edges. Marcus set documentary beats. Giovanni briefed the staff quietly. I laid our guest list flat. 25 names that never wavered. No seats for permission. Only witnesses trained for truth. Night gathered over Amalfi Stone. Ethan placed our rings on linen. My chest unclenched by increments. I had stopped auditioning for belonging. I was preparing to belong to myself. They called it sabotage. Tomorrow, our vows would prove it was freedom. Morning broke blue over Amalfi Stone. Giovanni paced the terrace like a conductor. West wind, he said. Test audio. Maria checked lenses. Alex checked batteries. Marcus marked documentary beats. Security took posts by the stairs. 25 chairs faced the sea's edge. My phone buzzed. A Seattle number. I let it ring, then another. I powered the phone down. Silence leveled the room. Guests arrived in soft pockets of joy. Present, kind, unperformative. Ethan's mentor hugged me, eyes wet. About time, he said, stepping back. Then a ripple reached us. Marco hurried from the gate. A woman demanded entry, claims she's family. Name? Giovanni asked, stone flat. She refused, waved a passport. Only the list, he answered. I breathed, slow and countable. This day wasn't a courtroom. It needed witnesses, not verdicts. Clouds lifted, light warmed to honey. 10 minutes, Giovanni said softly. From the bedroom, I watched the terrace. Ethan turned from the camera to the sea. He closed his eyes and smiled. Choosing joy looked like that. The guitarist began Northern Sky. I stepped into the hallway alone. Dressed simple, silk skimming my knees. No veil, no handoff, no choreography. Guests rose with a soft rustle. Faces I trusted arranged themselves. Maria lifted her camera, then lowered it, choosing to witness first. The officiant welcomed our small congregation. The light reached the hour I chase. Everything went golden at once. Sea, stone, olives, breath. Ethan spoke first, voice steady. I promised to see you, to widen the frame, to never ask you to shrink. My vows felt lighter than paper. I will stand tall, create beauty without apology, protect the frame where we breathe. Rings slid into place quietly, metal, skin, sunlight agreeing. Maria moved once, low and sure. Alex split the angle by instinct. By the power of witnessing, the officiant smiled at everyone. I pronounce what you chose. Applause rose, whole and unscripted. A shape flickered at the far stairs. Security shifted. The figure retreated. The jasmine didn't tremble. Dinner unfolded in specifics, not slogans. Laughter sounded like relief. James, visiting from Naples, arrived breathless. I caught something, he whispered, awed, and turned his display toward me. There we were. Hands joined, profiles bright. Olive vines framing Mediterranean blue. A halo made only of physics. Post it, I said, surprising myself. Caption it truthfully. He nodded and slipped away. Night gathered with patient stars. Bulbs stitched the terrace into constellations. Guests drifted into dancing without instructions. Ethan pressed his forehead to mine. We made the day we needed. Phones buzzed along the tables. A murmur spread, then lifted. James's photo is exploding, Maria said. The comments read like recognition. I watched the sea erase footprints. I let joy finish its sentence. By morning, the image wouldn't just be ours. It would be a verdict. Dawn slipped across the villa's stone. Phones kept waking themselves. James's photo outran the shoreline. Thousands, then hundreds of thousands. The comments read like recognition. Industry emails stacked behind congratulations. A magazine asked for the full set. A museum asked for the negative. Helena Baxter wrote simply, I see you. I didn't cry. I just breathed without rationing. For once, the frame fit. We flew home under a quieter sky. Seattle greeted us with ordinary rain. Ordinary felt like ceremony now. Clients I loved sent voice notes. Your day looked honest, they said. Your joy felt legible. Bookings filled 6 months and hours. At night, Ethan drafted a proposal. A series on chosen family. Workshops for artists told to shrink. Grants for photographers denied permission. We named it Love Without Permission. Giovanni sent olive wood for the logo. Maria and Alex offered first mentorships. Marcus delivered documentary reels that breathed. I rehung my wall of photos, not to argue with history, to change how it's lit. 12-year-old me holding a trophy, no longer apologizing to ribbons. Lily texted often, then carefully. Your wedding looked like you. Mine looked like a brochure. I answered sometimes, and kindly. Forgiveness doesn't require reunion. Peace doesn't require witnesses. Mom sent a single line. Your grandmother liked the picture. I pictured the old woman smiling. I let the sentence stand alone. Some frames don't need captions. One evening, I met a student, hands shaking around a portfolio. My parents call this a hobby. I recognized the ache immediately. Your light isn't theft, I said. Don't make yourself smaller to fit. I walked home through damp streets. Storefront glass kept returning my reflection. It didn't look larger. It looked unhidden. If you've been through this, you're not alone. Have you ever faced something like this? Tell me in the comments. I'll be reading. I set James' print on my desk. Sunlight slid across the olive leaves. I thought of that first spilled coffee. How humiliation rewrote my air. How choice rewrote it back. The sweetest revenge isn't ruining them. It's building the life they forbade, and living it in full, visible light.
I was 8, the year Travis got the PlayStation he wanted for Christmas. He unwrapped it before dinner, already shouting into the headset by dessert. I got a keychain with my name on it, Martha, in chipped plastic tucked into a crumpled gift bag that still had a price tag. Mom said they ran out of time to wrap. No one noticed it didn't come with a card. That was the first time I understood something about my family. The spotlight had one setting, and it never turned my way. My name is Martha Duval. I'm 18 now, and I've lived in the same two-story home in Lancaster, Pennsylvania my entire life. I share it with my parents, Walter and Elaine, and until recently with my older brother, Travis. He moved out last spring, sort of. He left his boxes, his mail, and his problems behind. Travis is 26, full of big ideas and even bigger promises. Real estate this year, crypto last year. Before that, a t-shirt startup. My parents never stopped betting on him. No matter how badly things went, they called it growth. When I made honor roll, they called it expected. When Travis got a traffic ticket reduced in court, they said it showed how well he handled pressure. 3 weeks ago, my grandmother Elaine's mother, Virginia Kessler, moved in with us. She'd had hip surgery up in Boston and needed a few months of recovery. My parents offered the guest room. I offered everything else. By the second week, it was me helping Grandma up the stairs, me timing her meds, me folding her laundry. Mom would peek in with a smile and say, "Thanks, sweetheart," before slipping off to another Zoom call. Dad mostly asked if she needed anything from Lowe's. Travis, when he visited, kissed her forehead and posted about it later. I didn't mind, not really. Grandma and I talked about old books about how Pennsylvania winters used to be heavier. She smelled like talcum powder and vanilla. When she laughed, she patted my arm like it was the most natural thing in the world, like I belonged somewhere. Last Friday night, I came home from my shift at the campus bookstore and heard voices through the kitchen door. I don't usually stop to listen, but something about Mom's tone made me stay in the hallway. She believes him, Mom was saying, low and tight. She actually thinks Travis has been helping with her medications. Dad's voice followed. Just let him keep the story straight through Sunday. He needs to present himself as reliable. This could be the investment window he's been waiting for. He needs that loan, Walter. I'm not going to watch him spiral again. Not if she's willing to step in. There was a long pause. "She's watching," Martha, Dad said finally. "I know." The microwave beeped. A drawer opened. I stepped back, careful not to creak the floorboards. Upstairs, the light under Grandma's door was still on. In mine, I sat down on the bed, still wearing my jacket, and stared at the chipped keychain on my bookshelf. I should have been angry. Instead, I felt expected, like the script hadn't changed, like I had always been the shadow in their spotlight. But now, Grandma was watching, and they were performing. The acceptance letter from Brinsley College had come on thick paper with a navy crest pressed into the envelope. I kept it in the drawer under my socks unopened for weeks. I'd already told myself it wasn't an option. Brinsley was private out of state and so far from reachable it might as well have been another planet. I had planned to attend Harrisburg Community College. Stay local, stay realistic. Then the email came. "We regret to inform you." That was the subject line. A clerical error in the state scholarship fund meant my grant had been pulled. Budget constraints, they said. My tuition would now be $12,400. I read the line twice then once more in case the number would change. That night, I sat at the dinner table with the news sitting in my throat like a stone. Dad was scrolling on his phone. Mom had her planner open underlining something in blue. Travis was in and out complaining about building permits. I waited until Grandma excused herself to the bathroom, then spoke. My scholarship fell through. For Harrisburg. I might not be able to go. Silence. Then Dad looked up only half-focused. 12 grand, right roughly. He leaned back, tapping his fingers against his armrest like he was counting off seconds. "I have a thought," he said. "Something that might work for everyone." Mom closed her planner. Her tone changed, soft and practiced. "Sweetheart, do you remember that education trust Grandma set up when you were little?" I nodded. "Well," she said, smiling like the words tasted sweet, "we've been talking. Travis has a window, an incredible opportunity. A commercial property just outside Harrisburg. He's close to securing it, but the upfront is tight." Travis chimed in, already animated. "The appraisal came in under market and the seller's desperate. If I can lock it in this week, I can double it in under a year. That money won't sit in some lecture hall. It'll move." Mom's eyes stayed on me. "We'd just borrow the trust amount. Temporarily. Once Travis flips the property, we'll repay the account, plus interest. And in the meantime, I asked." "You can defer," Dad said. "Take a semester, maybe more." Honestly, Martha College isn't going anywhere. No one mentioned Brinsley. No one asked what I wanted. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I asked to be excused, walked to my room and closed the door with both hands on the knob like I was holding something back. On my desk sat the keychain again. I picked it up the plastic warm from the sun through the window, turned it over once, twice, then set it down and opened the drawer where I kept important papers, birth certificate, part-time job stubs, a printout of the Brinsley acceptance. At the bottom, folded neatly, and yellowing at the edges was the document Grandma Virginia had drawn up when I was 9. A small educational trust managed by a third-party firm. Enough for 2 years at a decent college. Enough for the start of something. I read the page like I was seeing it for the first time. I'd always assumed it was a kind gesture, a placeholder. Now it was real, tangible. A thing they wanted, a thing they would take. Downstairs, laughter floated up through the vents. Travis was telling another one of his fast-talking stories. Mom's voice followed high and agreeable. I laid the paper on my bedspread and stared at it. They weren't asking. They were preparing. Sunday morning arrived with a chill sharp enough to lift the curtains in the hallway. Mom was already moving through the house like a tour guide, fluffing pillows, lighting a candle in every room, rearranging the silverware so it caught just the right light. She'd ironed a linen runner for the table, one we never used. Dad was in the garage trying to fix the screen door Travis had broken a month ago. "You don't need to help," Mom said as I came downstairs. "Just relax. Be presentable." Grandma's already met me. She smiled without warmth. "This brunch is important." By noon, the table was set for 9. Aunt Karen arrived first with Uncle Ray and a bundt cake from the store. Travis was last, of course, stepping in with sunglasses on his collar, shaking snow off his leather boots like someone had been waiting for the gesture. We sat. We passed plates. Small talk filled the spaces between bites. Travis launched into a soft pitch around the second cup of coffee, how he'd learned from past ventures how passive income was the future. His tone was polished, not too eager, just enough sincerity to seem practiced. Grandma listened, nodding occasionally but saying little. I stayed quiet, buttering my roll so slowly it came apart. After the dishes were cleared, Grandma reached into her coat pocket. Her movements were deliberate, not dramatic. She stood. "I'd like to say something." Mom stiffened. Travis sat up straighter. Dad stopped mid-sip. "This week I've had a chance to observe," she said. "To listen. I won't say much except this: I know when I'm being sold something. And I know when I'm seeing the truth." She looked at me, not quickly, not briefly. She held the gaze. Then she opened the envelope in her hand and withdrew 2 items, a folded property deed and a cashier's check. "This house in Oneonta, it's not large, but it's mine outright. And this check, $80,000. Together, they're a start." She placed both in front of me, for Martha, for her future, for being the only one in this room who didn't try to make a pitch. The silence that followed was not dramatic. It was tight, dense. I didn't look at anyone. I folded the paper once, then once more, and slid it into my bag. Mom was smiling with her mouth, but not her eyes. Dad reached for his napkin, missed it, reached again. Travis cleared his throat and said something about the oven still being warm. Grandma sat back down, and we all kept eating. 2 days after brunch, Grandma went back to Boston. Travis carried her suitcase to the car, like he'd helped her pack it, kissed her cheek with the same performative gentleness I'd seen a dozen times. She squeezed my hand before getting in. "You call me if anything gets uncomfortable," she said, then held my eyes for a beat longer than usual. That night, I worked a double shift at the bookstore. When I got home, the house was dark except for the kitchen light. I went upstairs, opened my door, and stopped. My desk drawers were open. The papers I kept in a blue folder were scattered across my bed. The Brinsley letter, the trust document, the deed from Grandma. They were all gone. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds before turning around. Downstairs, Dad was sitting in his chair like he'd been waiting. Mom stood near the sink, arms crossed. Travis leaned against the fridge, not looking at me. Dad started first. "We've talked." As a family, I didn't respond. "You're 18, he went on, and this is a big moment. But big moments require maturity. Sacrifice. Mom jumped in. This property Grandma gave you, it's not set up to help you right now. You're not even enrolled anywhere yet. I applied to Brinsley, I said. I was accepted. It's not practical. Travis cut in. You'd rack up debt in the first year. Meanwhile, I'm this close to closing on a triplex. That house deed would secure the loan. He said it like the decision had already been made. Dad stood. It's time you did something for the family. I looked at him. I've done everything quietly for 18 years, I said. This is the first thing that was just mine. Travis laughed, short, sharp. Nothing's just yours. We're family. Mom moved closer. Sweetheart, let's not turn this into a power struggle. No one's taking anything. We're reallocating assets until things settle. What if they don't? Dad's tone sharpened. Don't be dramatic. I'm not, I said. But you are. He stepped forward. Give me the papers. They're not here. He grabbed my wrist. It wasn't a slap or a shove. Just fingers locked tight around skin. But it was enough. I pulled back. Don't. His voice dropped. You will hand them over. Or you can leave. And if you leave, don't expect to come back. I stood there breathing in the kind of silence that stretches everything else thin. Then I turned and walked up to my room, locked the door, sat on the bed that had been mine since childhood, and stared at the walls where the paint had started to peel. By 1 a.m., I had packed a backpack, my birth certificate, social security card, school documents, and the check and deed. I'd moved them the day after brunch, hidden in the spine of an old geometry textbook no one touched anymore. I took my laptop, 2 sweaters, a pair of jeans, and the $23 in cash I kept in a mug on the shelf. At 4:30 a.m., I stepped out the back door. The yard was silver with frost. I didn't look back. At the Greyhound station, I bought a one-way ticket to Boston and waited in the corner booth of the coffee shop, backpack pressed against my side like a rib. My phone buzzed. Dad, then Mom, then Travis. Where are you? Come home. You're being ridiculous. That house doesn't belong to you. I turned the phone face down and let the messages roll in. Virginia opened the door in her slippers and a long wool cardigan, her hair still pinned from the night before. Her eyes widened when she saw me, then narrowed like she was reading a line of fine print. Come in, she said, no questions. The apartment smelled like apples and the faint trace of lavender. I stepped inside and kept my coat on even after she offered to take it. She waited. I sat down at the kitchen table. She poured coffee. I started talking. I told her about the folder on my bed, about my father's grip on my wrist, about the words they used, family, sacrifice, maturity. I told her they took the papers, that I'd moved them before they could find the real ones. I told her I left before they made good on their threat. I didn't cry. I wasn't even sure I sounded angry. Mostly, I sounded tired. She stood there for a moment, hands around her coffee mug, then reached for her phone, dialed slowly, pressed speaker. The phone rang twice before my father picked up. Virginia. His voice cracked with practiced relief. Thank God. She's there, isn't she? We were terrified. She ran off in the middle of the night, took valuables. She's confused. She's not confused, Virginia said. There was a pause. She told you her version, he said carefully. But Martha has a tendency to David. Her voice cut clean. She told me everything. I believe her. Another pause. The line buzzed faintly. She's manipulating the situation. That property, she's too young to manage it. She'll waste it. No, Virginia said. She'll learn. That's what 18 is for. Silence. Then Elaine's crying. Travis is devastated. This is splitting the family. No, she said again. What split the family was trying to steal from her. I looked down at the table. My hands were steady. Virginia continued. I'm calling my attorney this afternoon. The trust is being locked. My will is being updated. I will not fund this behavior any longer. You're being unfair, he said. No, she replied. I'm being late. She ended the call. Set the phone down gently, refilled her coffee. You'll stay here until school starts, she said. We'll find you a desk. Maybe repaint the spare room. You always hated yellow. I didn't answer right away. She didn't need me to. Outside, the Boston street was quiet snow hanging in the bare branches like punctuation. Inside the kitchen felt like exhale, like a door that had been stuck for years had finally opened. Grandma found me a small desk at an estate sale, solid oak, 3 drawers on the right one, shallow and sticky in the center. We set it up in the guest room next to a narrow window that overlooked the street. She changed the curtains. I didn't ask her to. That summer I worked part-time at a bakery on Tremont and spent the afternoons reading in the kitchen while she folded laundry or peeled apples for pie. We didn't talk about the house I left. We didn't talk about what it cost her to make that call. Sometimes the quiet between us said more than the stories ever could. I turned off notifications after the first week. The texts went from frantic to guilt-laced to angry, then back again. Mom sent Bible verses. Travis tried sarcasm. Dad called me ungrateful in one message, then still welcome in the next. I didn't answer any of them. In August, Grandma and I loaded the car and drove to Brinsley. She made my bed with hospital corners lined up my pens in a drawer I'd forget to use. Before leaving, she handed me a sealed envelope. For emergencies, she said. Or for cake. Sometimes those are the same. I kissed her cheek and didn't cry until she was gone. Campus was overwhelming in a way I didn't expect. So many lives, so much sound. But I found rhythm quickly. I joined the campus newspaper, kept my head down, listened more than I spoke. For once, no one knew my last name or who I was supposed to be. Midway through September, Aunt Karen called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me swipe. "You sitting down?" she asked. "It's a mess." Travis's investment had collapsed, deal, fell through liens on the other properties debt collectors circling. He'd moved back home. My parents had taken out a second mortgage. Elaine had pawned jewelry. Walter had picked up night shifts at a lumber yard. He's still pitching new ideas, she said. Still says it's temporary. I let the words settle. They didn't hit the way they used to. Later that week, I got a call from Grandma. They showed up, she said. All 3 of them. Knocked on my door like nothing ever happened. My hand tightened around the phone. They begged, she continued. For help, for forgiveness, for money. "What did you say?" I said no, she said. And I meant it. There was a pause, then her voice softened. They're not used to consequences, but it's time they made their own repairs. Fall break came with a rust-colored sky and the sound of leaves dragging along the sidewalks. I took the train back to Boston. Grandma met me at the station in her long wool coat, holding a thermos of tea like it was something sacred. We didn't say much on the ride home. I watched the city slip past the window while she hummed along to a song I didn't know. At the apartment, she'd made beef stew and cornbread. The table was already set. We ate slowly. Afterward, she pulled out her knitting while I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop trying to finish a research outline that wouldn't come together. "You still bite the inside of your cheek when you're stuck," she said, not looking up from her yarn. I forgot I did that. I didn't. I closed the laptop. "Can I ask you something?" I said. She nodded. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked. "Cutting them off." She set the knitting aside loop unfinished. "No," she said. "Not once." She leaned back in her chair, eyes on something I couldn't see. I kept giving them chances, thinking maybe this time they'd see past their own wants. But they never did. And I realized some people only change when they lose something that was never rightfully theirs to begin with. The radiator hissed near the window. Outside, someone's dog barked twice and then went quiet. Grandma reached over and touched my hand. "You didn't do this to them?" she said. "They did it to themselves." I didn't answer, but for the first time in weeks, the knot in my chest started to loosen. I came back once that winter, not for a visit, just to collect a box of old books I'd left in the closet. The house looked smaller than I remembered. The shutters needed painting. A plastic tarp covered half the roof. I rang the bell. Mom answered. Her face was drawn like she hadn't slept through a night in weeks. "You're not even going to ask how we're doing," she said. I didn't respond. "I came for the box," I said. "The one labeled Lit Class." She let me in without another word. Inside, the air was thick with something burned, maybe resentment, maybe just reheated leftovers. The living room was cluttered. Travis's voice carried from upstairs arguing with someone on speakerphone. Dad sat on the couch with a can of beer, eyes fixed on a paused football game. I found the box in the hallway closet, taped neatly untouched. I lifted it, turned back toward the front door. Behind me, Mom called out. "You know," she said, "this family used to mean something." I paused at the threshold, then looked over my shoulder. Not at her, not at the house, but past both. "You never asked how I was," I said. "Not once." I stepped outside. Didn't rush, didn't look back. Just walked into the cold with the box balanced in my arms and the kind of silence that doesn't wait for anyone to fill it. After dinner, while the twins tore through wrapping paper and someone's kid knocked over a glass of ginger ale, I quietly slid my phone from my pocket and checked my banking app. I wasn't expecting a surprise. I'd already paid for the catered ham and half the decorations, but what I saw made my hand go still in midair. $12,870. Charged that morning. Multiple purchases across department stores, toy chains, and a gift wrap service I'd never used in my life. I stared at the breakdown like it might change. It didn't. I looked up from my phone and asked softly but clearly, who used my card? Across the table, my father Frank swirled the wine in his glass, not even looking surprised. "We voted," he said. Calm, casual, like I'd asked if the stuffing was dry. Sitting beside him, my mother Linda kept her eyes fixed on her plate. "We figured," Frank continued, "since you don't have kids, and everyone else does, it made sense that you'd take care of the presents this year." At the far end, my sister Monica didn't even blink. She just sipped her wine while her 3 boys ripped open iPad boxes, the same ones I now realized I had unknowingly paid for. Around the room, there were shrugs, guilty glances, and silence. My cousin Megan looked like she might say something, then didn't. I cleared my throat. "You used my emergency card without asking." That was for Mom, for emergencies, not Barbie dream houses and Nerf rifles. "You always say you don't mind helping," Linda mumbled, barely audible. "Helping," I laughed once. "Helping is when someone asks. This was coordinated. This was theft." Frank shrugged. "It's just money, Catherine. You've got more than the rest of us." "Why make a big deal?" I scanned the table. 12 people. Half of them hadn't spoken to me all year unless it was to ask for a favor or a loan, and now they'd decided I was Santa Claus with a salary. "You're unbelievable," I said, standing. "Sit down," Monica snapped. "Don't ruin the kids' night." "Oh, don't worry," I said, reaching into my coat pocket for my phone. "I'm not going to ruin the mood." Frank raised an eyebrow. "What's that supposed to mean?" I met his eyes. "It means you're going to love what comes next." He laughed. Actually laughed like I'd just bluffed and lost. He didn't laugh the next day. You don't wake up one day and realize your family sees you as a wallet. It happens slowly, quietly, like water seeping under the floorboards. You don't notice the rot until your feet fall through. It started after my divorce. I was 42, newly alone, and for the first time in my life, steady. I'd worked my way into a hospital administration role. Nothing glamorous, but it paid on time, came with benefits, and didn't keep me up at night. I didn't have kids. No one needed me at home. I think that's when it began. At first, it was framed as kindness. Monica was between jobs and needed help with school supplies. Megan's car broke down the day before an interview. My cousin Greg had a root canal and no dental plan. I sent money always with a little note. "Hope this helps." No need to pay back. They never did. Then it grew. Braces for Monica's oldest. Shopify fees for Megan's side hustle, a bath bomb business she ran for 6 weeks before giving up. Groceries, rent, vet bills. When Uncle Greg's gallbladder flared up, I paid his ER bill in full. No one asked if I could afford it. They assumed. And I let them. Because back then, I told myself this was what families did. We showed up. We supported. We made things easier for each other. But over time, something shifted. They stopped saying thank you. Stopped checking in between requests. I became the emergency contact, the late-night transfer, the babysitter who never got invited to birthdays. One Christmas Eve, I had the flu fever chills, the kind that makes the tiles in your bathroom spin. I texted Mom that I couldn't make it. She replied, "Okay, but can you still send gifts? The kids are counting on you." I remember sitting on the cold floor wrapped in a blanket and thinking, so this is what I am to them. A delivery system with a bank account. What really broke something, though, came the next day. Monica posted a photo of her tree presents piled high with a caption that said, "We do it all for the kids." Do it all? I hadn't been invited. I hadn't even gotten a thank you. I didn't say anything. I just looked at the photo then at my phone and thought, they don't even pretend to include me anymore. They just expect me to show up as a credit line. 3 months before Christmas, I took Monica's youngest, Lily, to the bookstore. She's 6, bright-eyed, always drawing on napkins and receipts. That day, I told her she could pick out anything she wanted, no rules, no math, just what made her smile. $50 later, we left with 2 hardcover storybooks, a beginner watercolor set, and a sloth plushie the size of a small dog. She named it Slumpy before we even reached the parking lot. She held my hand the whole ride home. When we got back to Monica's, I helped Lily unbuckle, handed her the bag, and kissed her hair. Monica opened the door, glanced inside the bag, and said flatly, "What's all this?" "She picked them out," I said, still smiling. "It was a treat." Monica frowned. "You're spoiling her." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I didn't expect that tone. "It's just a few books and a stuffed animal." She crossed her arms. "You think being the fun aunt means giving her whatever she wants." Before I could answer, she added, "Maybe spend less on toys and more on a personality." The words didn't land right away. I just stood there blinking. I had given up my Saturday driven across town, waited while Lily debated between glitter pens and sticker books, and now this. I didn't say anything, just nodded once, stepped back, and watched the door close. It wasn't just the insult. It was the fact that there wasn't even a flicker of guilt in her face. Like kindness was a currency she didn't value unless it came with control. That night, I sat in my car longer than I needed to. The sloth's receipt was still in my purse. I thought about taking it back, but Lily had already named it, and Monica had already named me. Spoiler. Weak. Something to roll her eyes at. The group chat started buzzing in early November. Same as every year, who's hosting, who's cooking, who's doing gifts for which kids. I read the messages but didn't answer right away. I knew what they were circling around. By week 2, Monica finally asked, "You're good with the organizing stuff, right? Want to take gifts again this year," I replied. "Only if we agree up front who's paying." The message sat there, read by all. No one responded, not even a thumbs up. For 3 weeks, the thread went quiet. I thought just maybe they'd taken the hint. I was wrong. The first charge hit the Monday before Christmas, a toy retailer 2 states away, then another, and another. Department stores, electronics chains, a gift service with same-day delivery, all of it neatly itemized in my banking app, none of it authorized. It wasn't until I scrolled to the bottom that I recognized the card number. Not my usual one, the old backup I'd given Mom almost 8 years ago. Back then, it was for emergencies. Medication, groceries, gas if the car stalled. She'd promised to keep it safe. Apparently, she'd kept more than the number. 5 different shipping addresses appeared on the statement, none of them hers. Megan, Monica, Aunt Elaine. Someone even shipped a giant bounce house to a cousin's backyard in Indiana. They hadn't forgotten to ask me. They'd planned not to, and I could see it now, the whole operation. Quiet text chains behind my back. "Try this number, I think it still works." Purchases split so it wouldn't trigger alerts. Using a card I hadn't touched in years because they knew I wouldn't see it right away. It wasn't just disrespect, it was coordination, and what chilled me most wasn't what they bought. It was how sure they were I'd never push back. That night I didn't sleep, not because of guilt, I wasn't there yet, but I wasn't angry either, not the kind of anger that burns and fades. What I felt was colder, steadier, like clarity settling into my bones. I lay there in the dark, playing every scene back in my head. The laughter, the shrug, Monica saying, "You'll survive." Dad calling it a vote, like my money was a family resource, like not having children made me public property. By dawn, the hesitation had drained out of me like poison. If they wanted to treat this like democracy, then fine. Let's vote. I opened my laptop. Subject line, holiday contribution changes. Body effective immediately. I'm stepping away from all financial support related to our extended family. That includes, but is not limited to, Christmas gifts, birthday gifts, minors or adults, school tuition contributions, mortgage bridges, emergency Venmos, bailouts for vet bills, car repairs, or streaming subscriptions. If you've already spent money using my cards, expect a chargeback. If you've saved or shared my information without my consent, expect legal contact. You voted. I'm voting back. Merry Christmas. The childless one. I read it 3 times, not to edit, just to feel it. Then I hit send. One message, sent to every number in the family thread. Monica, Megan, Aunt Elaine, Uncle Greg, even my mother. Every one of them who'd smiled in my face while taking what I never actually offered. Then I powered off my phone. It took 7 hours and 16 minutes before I turned it back on. The notifications nearly cracked the screen. 53 missed calls, dozens of voicemails, texts that ranged from stunned to screaming. My cousin threatened to sue me for emotional harm. My mother said she was heartbroken. Dad left 12 messages, the last one just a single sentence. Please, for the love of God, don't do this. But it was already done. The chargebacks were in motion. The backup card was frozen. The holiday train they'd hitched to my name derailed. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the one left behind. I felt like the one who got out. Monica showed up the next evening. No warning, no call. Just the sound of her engine in my driveway and her knock at the door, sharp but uneven. When I opened it, she was already crying. She didn't wait for an invitation inside, just stepped over the threshold like nothing had happened and said, "We didn't mean for it to go like that." Her mascara was smudged. Her voice was soft. She looked exhausted, or maybe she just knew what look worked best. I didn't say anything. She kept going. "We were overwhelmed, Kath. Everyone's stretched thin and you're always so good at managing things. I think we forgot you're human too." That almost cracked something, because part of me, the part I hate, still wanted her to mean it. "I never wanted to make you feel used," she added. None of us did. She hugged me before I could object, a quick, clumsy press of shoulder against shoulder. I let it happen. Not because I forgave her, I didn't, but because some part of me still hoped someone might finally say, "We're sorry. We were wrong." She left 30 minutes later. I made tea and sat by the window trying to decide if that had been real. An hour after that, I got an alert from my bank. Someone was trying to reset access to my online account. I froze. Then I checked the device ID. It was Monica's. The reconciliation was a script. The hug was a prop. The tears were currency. She hadn't come to apologize. She came to test the lock. I called the bank, changed every password, froze the last remaining backup card, flagged the attempt as fraud. And then I sat very still in my kitchen tea gone cold and let the final thread snap. They didn't want me back. They wanted what I had. 3 days later, they came together. My mother, Linda, wearing the same beige coat she's had since I was a teenager. My father, Frank, jaw tight like he was chewing his words before he let them out. And Monica, arms crossed, mouth twisted like she'd bitten into something sour and decided I was the flavor. They were waiting on my porch when I pulled into the driveway. I sat in the car for a moment, letting the engine tick before killing it. I wasn't surprised. I was just tired. I opened the door. "Say what you came to say." Linda jumped in first. "We didn't mean for it to happen like this." I didn't answer. "We just thought," she continued, "you'd be okay with helping. You've always been the one we could count on." "You didn't ask," I said. "We shouldn't have had to." Monica snapped. "It's family. We do what needs to be done." I looked at her. "What you mean is, I do what needs to be done." Frank raised his hand like he was calming a meeting. "This has gone far enough. The chargebacks are causing chaos. Just reverse them. Let's move on." I almost laughed. "You want me to pretend none of this happened?" He frowned. "Think about how this looks. People will say you turned your back on your family over a few gifts." "No," I said, "they'll say I finally grew a spine." Monica rolled her eyes. "You're acting like we drained your entire savings. You make 6 figures, Catherine. You'll survive." And that, I said, stepping closer, is exactly why this ends now. They didn't speak. You treat me like I'm your wallet with a casserole. I show up, pay up, clean up, and then I disappear until the next crisis. Linda's voice cracked. We just wanted to give the kids a good Christmas, so you stole from me. Frank took a step forward. Enough. Undo it. Now. I stared at him, calm, measured. No. He blinked, like he didn't expect that word from me. I'm done, I said. I've already blocked your numbers, and this weekend I'm moving. Another state. Alone. The silence that followed was the most honest sound I'd heard from them in years. I opened the door behind me. Get off my porch. The first 48 hours were silent. No calls, no texts, no guilt wrapped in concern. I woke up to nothing, and for the first time in over a decade, I didn't brace myself before checking my phone. I made coffee, sat on the floor beside half-packed boxes. The morning light filtered through bare windows, warm and indifferent. No one needed me. No one expected anything. It was beautiful. I went to the store and bought a new shower curtain, chose one I liked, not one that matched the guest towels I kept for people who never stayed. I picked groceries based on cravings, not head counts. I remembered what it felt like to shop without planning around someone else's needs. That night I turned my phone to Do Not Disturb. Not because I was avoiding anyone, but because I finally knew no one would come knocking. The stillness wasn't empty. It wasn't hollow or sad. It was mine. And I realized I'd spent years surrounded by noise asks, demands, expectations, all disguised as connection, all shouting over the one thing I'd ignored. Me. They hadn't just stolen my money. They'd filled up every quiet space until I forgot what it meant to be alone. Without being used. Now, I remembered, and I wasn't going back. The message came late on a Tuesday, just a number I didn't recognize. No greeting, no emojis, just a short line that made me sit up straighter. He's out. We're getting divorced. I wanted you to know. It was Erin Megan's sister-in-law. Quiet, polite, always in the background at holidays refilling coffee or cutting cake, never speaking over anyone. She'd seen it all, and she'd stayed silent. Until now. We talked the next day. She told me Megan's spiral had gotten worse. Job gone. Savings drained. Erin found out she was still trying to access my old banking details even after being caught. I didn't believe you before, she said. I do now. I didn't say much, just listened. And then she said, you were the only one who ever actually helped. Not with money. With truth. That part hit harder than I expected. Because for so long I'd told myself leaving was selfish, that choosing myself meant abandoning others. But maybe someone else had been waiting to see if it was survivable. Sometimes you don't just walk away. You leave the door open. So when someone else finds their courage, they know which way is out. I moved. New state, new apartment. No relatives within 400 miles. I adopted a dog, a quiet little mix with soft ears and cautious eyes. I named her Balance. I started therapy. When I told my therapist the whole story, she didn't flinch, just nodded and said, you were conditioned to believe that love must be earned through sacrifice. And that's what it was. They didn't ask if I was happy, only if I was useful. Now I grocery shop without guilt. I cook real meals just for me. I take long walks with Balance and leave my phone on silent, not because I'm hiding, but because I'm free. Sometimes I get texts from new numbers. Sometimes voicemails disguised as apologies. I don't listen. I renamed the old family group chat before I left. This card has permanently closed. Then I hit leave chat. They didn't lose me. They lost access. I know what you might be thinking. Maybe you've been called selfish for setting a boundary. Maybe you've been told family helps family right after they helped themselves to your silence. Or maybe, like me, you were the one who always showed up with the check, with the casserole, with the ride to the airport, and no one ever asked how you were getting home. We're taught that love means giving. But no one warns you what happens when you give so much that you disappear. So if you're still listening, not because you're curious, but because something in this story felt too familiar, then I want to say this: you're not cold for walking away. You're not cruel for saying enough. You're not broken just because you finally chose yourself. They'll say you changed. Maybe you did. But sometimes change is the first honest thing you've done in years. So tell me, have you ever been the one who gave until there was nothing left of you but your name on the group card? You don't have to explain. Just leave a dot. I'll know what it means. And maybe someone else will too.